Let's just read the passage. The invention in 1958 of the integrated circuit radically altered the semiconductor industry. In fact, some historians argue that it fundamentally, right away, I kind of sense it. I want to say something like altered, what they just said right here. In fact, some historians argue that it fundamentally altered the industry by enabling it to take advantage of mass production methods for the first time. So look, if this is a PSAT, you're kind of just getting new to this SAT thing, I do not expect you to have that instinctive response like I just did to know exactly what's going on in this passage. But eventually, when you take the SAT, that's where you want to be. It's so obvious to me that these two sentences are just repeating each other. The words in fact are kind of suggesting that we're basically emphasizing what we just said. So the structures of the sentences are kind of similar, even though they're using different words. You want to start to notice those things. You might have instinctive responses on your own, but the more you can kind of back those up with some sort of evidence, the more confident you'll be in those instincts when you have them. So if we're looking for a word that just means altered or changed, then transformed is perfect. So some historians argue that it fundamentally transformed the industry by allowing it to take advantage of blah, blah, blah. So there we go. Just to talk about some of these other words, overwhelmed means to kind of, yeah, you probably know what overwhelmed means, but to just like make something kind of, I don't even know what it would mean to overwhelm an industry though. Overwhelmed the industry means kind of like put it down in some way or put it under, I feel. Like if you can kind of think about the industry as now no longer surviving, maybe it's overwhelmed by the chips is maybe what they're trying to say here. It's just flooded with them, but that just doesn't make any sense. We don't have any evidence of that. So it doesn't, like I can't even make it fit. It does not fit. Bypassed, to bypass something is to kind of go around it. So if you're on a road and there's like an obstruction, like a tree fell in the road, you bypass it by going around it, literally. So I don't know why they would bypass the industry. They're talking about the industry. It's about how that changed. And obstructed, that's something bad. That means to get in the way, So yeah, it's a good thing, right? So this is a good example of how we can think just about connotations to help us out. We are saying that this is a good change, taking advantage of these things. So get in the way is definitely a negative word. To me, transformed is still kind of neutral. It doesn't necessarily have a connotation, but that's okay. To have the word be a little bland is fine. What I wouldn't want to do though is flip the connotation. If we're talking about this in a good way, to have a negative word, it doesn't really make sense. It's taking advantage of something, not getting in the way of something. So it doesn't really make sense. But I think most of you are going to get to choice D just by kind of noticing that we're repeating ourselves, and ultimately that is what we want to do for as many of these questions as we can.